In the quiet corners of a small Texas town, Clara lived in the shadow of other people's judgments. Her life was a string of chores, errands, and quiet service to those who never looked at her as an equal. The wealthy ranchers and their wives treated her as though she were a piece of furniture, useful when needed, but never respected. They mocked her simple clothes, snickered at her plain shoes, and called her worthless as if it were her name. Clara bore it all with silence, not because she was weak, but because she had learned that speaking only fed their cruelty. Inside, however, her spirit refused to bend. That spirit was tested one warm evening when the town gathered for its annual barn dance. The event was the pride of the community, where laughter echoed beneath lantern light and fiddles filled the air. Clara went not to dance but to watch from the edges, content with a quiet place in the back. Yet, even standing alone wasn't enough to shield her from the barbed words of those who thrived on meanness. A group of ranch wives spotted her and, with sharp smiles, decided she didn't belong. They nudged her roughly aside, their sneers cutting deeper than their hands ever could. "You don't belong here, girl," one of them hissed, loud enough for others to hear. The laughter that followed carried like broken glass across the wooden floor. Clara's cheeks burned crimson, her hands trembled, and though she tried to keep her gaze steady, the weight of humiliation pressed her eyes downward. The sting of rejection was something she had grown used to, but that night, with so many watching, it pierced her heart with a sharpness she hadn't expected. The music faltered for her, the lights blurred, and for a moment she wished she could disappear altogether. Then, something shifted. The chatter dimmed, and the air in the barn seemed to still. Boots echoed against the floorboards, slow and deliberate, each step commanding attention. From the far corner, a tall figure emerged. It was the cowboy, the quiet one. He was known in town for speaking little, for working hard, and for carrying himself with a calm strength that unsettled even the loudest men. No one truly knew him, yet everyone respected his silence. His eyes, steady and unyielding, swept across the room until they found Clara. Without hesitation, he began walking straight toward her, his presence breaking the cruel circle of whispers. Clara's breath caught as he stopped just before her. He didn't say a word, yet his silence spoke volumes louder than the laughter that had filled the barn moments before. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what he would do. For Clara, time slowed. Her shame battled with confusion, and her trembling hands fidgeted at her sides. Then, with a simple, steady motion, the cowboy extended his hand toward her. No pity touched his eyes, only respect, and something deeper she hadn't felt in years. Recognition. The barn fell into a silence that felt heavier than the music ever had. Every set of eyes followed the cowboy, disbelief written across their faces. Some whispered, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Why him? Why her? The questions rippled through the crowd like wildfire, but none dared to speak too loudly. Clara stood frozen, her heart hammering so loudly she feared it might betray her trembling composure. She had spent her life on the edges of every room, unnoticed or ridiculed, and now suddenly she was at the very center of it. The cowboy's boots stopped only inches from her. His height seemed to tower, but his gaze was not one of dominance. Instead, his eyes carried a steady calm, as though he had been waiting for this moment all along. Without a word, he extended his hand toward her, not in mockery, not with pity, but with an unmistakable respect that made the crowd gasp. For the first time in memory, someone was standing against the tide of cruelty that had followed Clara like a shadow. His silence spoke volumes. She was not invisible, not worthless, and he was willing to show it. Clara hesitated. Years of scorn whispered in her mind, warning her this might be a trick, another cruel joke at her expense. Her fingers twitched as her gaze darted from his hand to the judgmental faces around them. But the cowboy's expression never wavered. There was no mockery in his eyes, only quiet strength, and something even more dangerous, something like trust. Slowly, almost fearfully, Clara placed her hand in his. The murmurs stopped instantly. That simple gesture shattered the weight of every cruel word that had been used against her. For the first time, silence belonged to her, not her oppressors. He led her gently onto the dance floor. Each step felt like defiance, each movement a declaration that dignity could not be stolen up, it could only be hidden, waiting for the right moment to shine again. The fiddles pricked up softly, as though even the musicians had been waiting for a cue. Clara's feet felt heavy at first, but the cowboy's grip was steady, anchoring her against the storm of eyes that burned into them. The same voices that once mocked her were speechless, their sharp tongues dulled by the quiet power of the cowboy's choice. Clara felt something stir deep inside her chest, a spark of strength she thought had long been extinguished. As they moved together across the wooden floor, Clara realized something life-changing. Worth was never something granted by others, it was something claimed within. And in that moment, with her hand in the cowboy's, she understood she had been worthy all along. The laughter and cruelty of the town could no longer define her. Sometimes it only took one brave soul to reach out, to see what others refused to see, and to remind the world of someone's true value. That night, under the lantern lights, Clara was no longer invisible.